What's up, harvesters, and welcome back. Today we're going to talk about pruning. No, not that type of pruning. And no, not those prunes either, but I guess technically you could prune a prune tree. We're going to talk about pruning our perennials. So we have our raspberry bush that we're going to touch up today, our roses, and a few other perennials that we have around the property. So stay tuned and we'll get into it. So right here we have our raspberry bush from this last year. We planted it about 2 years ago. This past year was the first year that we got any type of harvest out of it. And we have Mr. Apollo here interested in what we're doing. So we're going to get into how we should prune our perennial. We're going to be filling this bed in with wonderful blueberries, blackberries, strawberries, and raspberries. We have some strawberries over another part of the garden, and I learned this past year that this was not the best spot for some of our other crops just because of some of the shade that is against the house. So our berries did thrive, though. We had a great harvest when it came to those, only being the second year. So let's get into some quick details about this. First and foremost, we have a few different types of canes, and there are different types of raspberries. There's everbearing and summer bearing. Realistically, you can prune them both very similarly, just depending upon which kind you have. This is a summer plant, so it is not going to bear all year long. It's only summer bearing. And really, even if you have an everbearing, you can prune it the same way and you'll get similar results. You just may miss out on 1 year worth of harvest if you are planting it initially as an everbearing and you prune it like a summer bearing. So first thing we have right here, we have two different types of stems or canes. This cane, it was just dangling too much, so I pulled it off, but you can see that the color is much more vibrant of a brown, and I did pull this off about a month or so ago towards the beginning of winter. So at this point, the buds are not showing as quality on here, but you should be able to see a distinct difference between this really gray, easily breakable, old flora cane essentially. If I cut through this, you'll still see some green in there, and it is a little bit hard when you break it. It doesn't just break apart easily. It's a little bit harder to break. So even a couple months to a month after this, you still have green in here, and that's kind of how you can tell the difference. All in all, though, what you need to do for a raspberry plant is you should be pruning it to about, let's say, 2 to 4 feet. The reason I say you can go on the lower side of it is really for maintaining it. It can grow much further up. It will still bear fruit, but you kind of want to keep it at a manageable level so there's good airflow and it has a quality presence in your garden. You don't want it to be overwhelming anything, especially if you're going to be planting other berries or other things near it, so that way it has its own space, and at the end of the day you're going to get a good harvest. But you want to remove any of the extra unnecessary foliage that's in here. So like I said, there's very old brown shoots. You're going to be able to get rid of those so they don't take up any space and the airflow continues. And sometimes there's some pests that got involved in there or disease that may be able to go to the rest of the plant. So getting rid of those is your best bet. All right, so right here we have an older cane, and you can tell by these side shoots that are right here, these are just falling off. This is where the previous growth or our previous berries probably came off of, is these little side shoots here, and you can see some of the dead leaves at the end here that ultimately are from that. So realistically, we can get rid of this entire little cane right here all the way down to right around ground level. And if you look inside there, see that it is all brown. It's all dead. It's not anything that is going to be growing anytime soon. And as you can see, this plant shoots all the way over here. This is a solid foot away from the base of where it was planted, so they will come up. This is also another one that it is gray. It is all about done. So I'm going to cut it down at the base. And obviously I don't necessarily need anything coming out on that side. So really I cut that down a little bit further than I could have. As you can see on this side, it is a little bit of the green. On this side, it's pretty much on the dead side. So maybe it was just a little diseased on that side, but there are some buds over here, so that tells me that it is generally still alive. But I'm going ahead, and it's still around the 1.5 foot mark, so something that will be able to grow up. And if you notice, I cut it at an angle so that way no water can develop on there and really cause any type of disease to develop, because moisture consistently on it will potentially cause some type of disease to come through. This may not have the same type of success as it did last year, but the rule of thumb is 2 years worth of growth. Like the first year you don't get anything out of your cane, and then the second year you may get a full harvest. Really the third year is probably the last one you're going to get out of it, but I haven't had this plant long enough to see how much this is going to make, but you know, seeing that it still does have its buds, I can trust that it will come back another year. But I do want to make sure that it is strong at the base. So any of these long dangly sections, I'll cut back a little bit, and I'll keep it at about a 3 foot height, and that is just perfectly fine. That way it is strong. It's not extending its energy up further to anything smaller to really not give us that great of growth anyway. Now we come down to this, which is very much done, and I'm going to cut that straight out of the base. Again, it gives us some airspace or airflow to work through. These are definitely some longer side shoots that have come out, so this has definitely been utilized to its fullest extent. And I will cut this right at the butt base as well. This is good growth. Another over here. There's some leaves in my way. Cut that out. Here we go. This is one that has also been, it's actually coming off of another one that I had cut last year. As you can see, there's a cut node right here. So I'll cut this one straight down here. That really opened up some space in there. And just kind of feel around down here. We got another really small one that can come out. And then we have buds coming off of mainly all of these at the moment. Really take a look at how much we just freed up in that area and what we can do with space around it, and how much airflow we'll maintain. And really the best part is we're not going to have any type of competition here for extra growth that is coming out. And if we have extra growth coming out, it's competing for sunlight and energy flow. So some of this clean up a little bit just so it does have a little less hanging off from it in case any energy does go to it. But all of these are going to turn into little nodes that come off, and I can't wait to put in some more berries in this patch. We really can get this mixed in with some raspberries, blueberries, blackberries. Alright, so here we have, essentially I have in this bed right here, I'm going to redo it this year I believe. We have some perennial grass that is growing in here, and then these, and I can't quite remember the name of it, but they're a berry that comes off, and ultimately it's poisonous to dogs, and I'd rather not have it around in my property just you know, for the sake of my pets, and then it's grown behind my fence over here. So I'm going to try and cut it down as much as I can without being able to get fully to the root system, but cleaning these up now is way better than when they are showing growth later in the next couple of months when we get into spring. And I'll cut it on this side first. And this is dead for the most part anyway, but it's going to continue to grow year after year. Now I'm going to hope that these don't come back again this year. So we'll take a look at our compost here. We still have some work to be done, so I'm just going to give it a little spin. So our roses remain dormant this time of year, but you can see some buds are starting to pop up on them. It's not too late to get into it. Our rose bushes I did trim up last year quite a bit, but as you can see, they're a little bit untamed at the moment. So not terrible, but I would like to get them down a little bit because they do grow way too fast for comfort. And I'm just going to give them more so a trim down to maybe like chest level, more for eye appeal. Like you can let them grow as much as you'd like. And in fact, I have something else growing in here at the moment as well. Took a lot of effort. But already that looks much better, just getting rid of that extra nonsense. So, as always with thorns, just be careful of roses, be careful of the thorns. You can see nothing's really budding too much. You can see these little nodes on the side, but really no flower growth, so it does help you out getting ahead of any flower growth, so you're not really stunting the plant. You're just here to clean it up. I try and cut off some of these like lankier single file areas, just because like when it's sticking out that much, you're going to get maybe a little bit of growth off of it, but something that's a little more compact like this, it's going to be a fuller. What's really the goal of having our perennial flowers? A lot of the times it's either to bring in good insects and pollinators into our garden, and second, for eye appeal, right? We want to look at something that is beautiful around the yard. So having it set up to where you have it trimmed and looking nice and maintained is going to give a better eye appeal to it, and something that you'll enjoy coming out and looking at. So especially for thorns on these roses, you don't want them hanging all over the place, so trim them up, have it looking nice and kind of collected. And this is very similar to our raspberries that we talked about. You can see the buds coming off of some of them, and you can also see that there is basically dead material. So anytime that you see a fully gray area without any buds coming out of any of the nodes, it's probably a good sign that you can just take that right off. So not only trimming it down, now I'm not looking for an incredible array of our roses, you know, more so I'm looking for just having a full plant. Now you could trim this down quite a bit more in order to get a fully functional plant when it comes to everything's going to bloom as much as possible, but for my raspberries and other bushes like that, you can maintain a very thin layer so you can get a very fruitful harvest when it comes to fruiting. Again, flowers, if it's fuller, I appreciate that a little bit more than what it looks like when it is bare. In reality, we really clean this area up. We have to obviously rake some of these things up around here, but overall this is going to be, you know, remember that when it does grow, it's going to push up quite a bit when it comes to the growth, but not as much as some other, you know, like our raspberry is going to grow up quite a bit and other perennials, but the wonderful roses that we have here should maintain about the bottom of this roof at most. I left these back One's up a little bit higher just because the sun does come in this angle. All right, so we have a perennial here that has not been cut back fully in several years. And it is beautiful with the amount of flowers, but these stalks just are a little too much to handle right now. So we're really going to cut it down about as far as I can get it. Reason you can do that is most of the growth is not going to come out of these current shoots right here. It is all going to come out of the future to grow out of the soil. So really it's all just clumped up under here, as you can see, and these are the old flowers, and we can just get rid of it all. So why not? I do recommend using a bigger one of these just because these are a little bit thicker and you're cutting a ton of them, so you really need to get in there and cut as much as possible, although getting a sharper pair would be useful. And while our patch here does look a little bit not organized and clean, when the springtime's come, we're gonna kind of clean this up a little bit, put some fresh mulch down, and make it look a little bit more presentable. The rest of our stuff here is cut down quite a bit, so we should be able to really let this grow more. I could cut this down even further, but I'm gonna leave it. All right, that's it, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Hope you learned a thing or two about pruning our perennials, and you can take that into your garden. Even though it is February, it is starting to warm up some of these places. We saw some snow a couple weeks ago, and now we're at 50 degrees in the middle of February. So hopefully it warms up for you guys soon, and stay tuned for things to come as we get into the spring. Thanks for watching.